Catalyst of Development Enterprise, Code, podcast number 2. Today we're going to be talking about goal setting and strategy. For those that are new and this is, you're a first time listener, I want to say welcome. Go ahead and click that subscribe button. For those that this is your second go around and you paid attention to the first one, thank you for coming back. Today, again, we're going to talk about goal setting and strategy. Let's do a quick little recap on what we talked about during the first podcast, why we are here. Started out by telling you a little bit about myself, how we got here, how Code was kind of founded, how it kind of birthed itself, my importance in viewing the development process and how it ties to our growth and therefore our happiness and fulfillment. I kind of gave you a quick little rundown on the 6 things that I felt development provided us in our lives. From there, I gave you your homework, right? We talked about looking into the future, looking into that crystal ball, that 5-year plan. In a perfect world, where do you see yourself in 5 years? We also discussed taking a closer look at year 2020. It's right around the corner. What does 2020 look like for you? What steps do you need to take in 2020 to make sure that your 5-year plan becomes a success? From there, it ties right into what we're going to discuss today. Remember, I told you were going to need this homework. Today, we're going to discuss goal setting and strategy. It's funny, we're getting ready to go into the new year, and I just made a video, and I can't remember if I made it on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok. There's so many social media platforms out there. It's honestly hard to keep track. But it was one of my Imagine If videos, and I was telling folks, imagine if we spent as much time focusing on developing plans for 2020 as we are, when we're trying to determine where we're going to go for our New Year's party and what we're going to drink and who we're going to hang out with. If we put as much attention into establishing our goals as we did on where we're going to party, man, we'd all be well better off. Well, that's what we're going to do today. And for those listening and or watching the video, I know that's what you're here for. You're here to put in the work to develop the game plan to make sure that your 2020 is a success. So goal setting and strategy. Jim Rohn, he talked about goals. And I love what he said. He was, there is no telling what you can do when you get inspired by them. There's no telling what you can do when you believe in them. And there's no telling what will happen when you act upon them. Goal setting and strategy, right? You have your 5-year plan. You took a close look at 2020. So let's break each one of these down individually. We're going to start by discussing goal setting. When we're talking about goal setting, I like to tie it back to something I read in the book Atomic Habits. And what the author discussed was the Goldilocks rule. Now, we all remember the story of Goldilocks and the 3 bears. Goldilocks went into the house and tried to sleep in the bed, and one was too large, one was too small, and one was just right. Goldilocks tried the porridge, and one was too hot, one was too cold, and one was just right. I want you to think about your goal setting and the goals you established, and I want you to frame them to the Goldilocks rule. Your goals should not be too large or too hot, meaning they shouldn't be so big that you are going to struggle day in and day out to achieve them, right? They shouldn't be so far reaching that you're going to eventually get discouraged and end up giving up. On the flip side of that, your goals shouldn't be too cold or too small that you have no difficulty in achieving them. You have no difficulty in making them happen, because what that does is it ends up creating a sense of boredom, right? You get bored with them. They're almost too easy, and you give up anyway. No, your goals need to be set to where they are just right. This is the Goldilocks rule. Now, when I talk about goals that are just right, we all know that growth comes from stepping outside of your comfort zone. So, with that, your goals need to be set up to be just outside of your comfort zone, to be challenging enough that you have to change who you are in order to achieve them. That is a just right goal. Just outside of your comfort zone, that they're challenging enough that you can achieve them, and when you do, you feel that sense of fulfillment. So make sure when you're looking at your goals that they're not too large, not too small, not too hot, not too cold, but just right. Also, when we're talking about goal setting, I want to talk about the SMART principle. Now, some of you may have heard this before. You know, it's an acronym, SMART, SMART. I want you to break your goals down that way, but with a little twist, right? So we'll start with S. Your goals need to be specific. I don't want some vague goal. I don't want some, just kind of, oh, you know what? I want to lose weight. Okay, that's great. So if you lose a pound, you're going to be happy? Chances are that's not the answer, right? Be specific with your goals. I want to save money. Okay, so if you save $1, you're good? No. Be specific, right? Break them down. The more detailed you will get, the more likely you are in achieving them. So number one, be specific. Number two, the M. Your goals need to be measurable. How will you measure your achieving them or not? How will you look at, whether or not it's monthly, quarterly, annually, it doesn't matter, but how will you measure your success? Are they measurable? If we're talking about weight, maybe your measurement is getting on the scale. If we're talking about finances, maybe your measurement is looking at your bank account. But your goals have to be measurable. Now, on to the A. This is where we're going to look into our slight tweak. Now, usually with SMART principles, the A stands for attainable. Well, we've already talked about the Goldilocks rule and making sure that your goals are set just right. So we're going to change attainable to accountable. This is where I think you are going to get the most juice for your squeeze. A lot of times we don't tell anybody about our goals. We don't share them with friends, families, people that are honestly deemed our accountability partners. This is where you can get the most bang for your buck. When we tell other people what our goals are, we have a sense of determination in not only achieving them for ourselves, but so that we don't let down other people, right? So accountable. Make sure the goals that you establish, you share with others. Tell them, ask them, request from them that they in turn hold you accountable, that they help you in achieving some of these goals. Whether or not it's a daily text or an email or a phone call, just saying, hey, how are you doing with the goal you told me you were going after? Make sure you have an accountability partner or partners set up. On to the R. Your goals need to be relevant, right? If you have a 5-year plan of, finishing school, and you set a goal of becoming more healthy, let's be honest, that doesn't really tie into your 5-year plan of finishing your degree at school, right? The goals you establish has to be relevant to not only your 2020 vision, but also your 5-year vision of yourself. Make sure they tie in, make sure they go hand in hand. Right? And then finally, T, time-based or time-bound. The best goals have a timeline set to them, right? Now understand, I also need this timeline that you establish to be realistic, but you have to be working towards something. You have to be working towards not an end, but a checkpoint, if you will. We've all played those like racing games when we were younger, and when you hit a checkpoint, you got extra time. You'd be driving, and all of a sudden you'd hit a checkpoint, and somebody would come on and they'd be like, checkpoint. boom, an extra 30 seconds, right? You have to have checkpoints to your goals. They have to be time-based. Again, this ties back into helping you hold yourself accountable. So, specific, measurable, accountable, relevant, and time-based. That's how I want you to set your goals up going into 2020. Now, we just finished up talking about goal setting and some of the mindset that I wanted you to take going into it. Let's jump into strategy. This to me is huge. When I think about it, both winners and losers have goals, right? It's a fact. Do you know how many people set resolutions and or goals at the end of every year, jumping into the new year? It's a lot. Do you know how many of those people are successful? It's not a lot. And the number one issue with that is strategy. I'm going to give you an example. Let's say your goal is to see the sunrise. Now, we all know the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. So, your goal is to see the sunrise. So you wake up January 1st and you start walking west. You're walking and you're walking and you're walking and you're getting discouraged because for some reason you're not seeing that sunrise. But then you remember what somebody told you. You know what? To achieve your goals, you have to give that extra effort. You have to give that extra push. Okay? So instead of walking, I'm going to start jogging. But I'm still not seeing the sunrise. What's going on? So you decide to start running. We're giving that extra effort. But I'm still not seeing the sunrise. So we start sprinting, right? I'm giving max effort, but I'm still not seeing the sunrise. What's going on? But then you remember somebody told you, you know what? In order to achieve your goals, you got to remain positive. So as you're running and sprinting west in your pursuit to see the sunrise, you start telling yourself these positive things. I'm almost there. I'm going to make it. It'll be worth it in the end. You're so positive and you're uplifting yourself and you're sprinting and you're full steam ahead and you're heading west. And through all this positivity and all this effort, you're still not able to reach your goal of seeing the sunrise. That's because without the proper strategy, it doesn't matter how much effort or positivity or hard work or discipline you have, you will never see the sunrise as long as you are heading west. You must have a strategy to your goals. What is a strategy to make sure that your 2020 turns out the way you want it to be? What is a strategy to ensure that your 5-year plan of yourself, that perfect world version of yourself, becomes a reality? You have got to figure out the strategy. One of the best ways to do this, I found, is reverse engineering. I love taking my end goal and reverse engineering it all the way back to the smallest, most minute detail, those checkpoints that we talked about, that I can ensure that I can hit in order to get me to my ultimate goal. Let's use finances for an example, right? Let's say my 5-year plan is to save $50,000. Well, all I have to do now is develop a strategy or reverse engineer it to ensure that I reach that goal. So $50,000 in 5 years. Simple math tells me that that's $10,000 a year. All right? Let's break that down even further. Simple math tells me that if I have to save $10,000 every year, every 6 months, I need to save $5,000. Let's break that down even further. If I know I have to save $5,000 every 6 months, that lets me know that every 3 months, I need to save. Yeah, you can do the math. Now, my public math isn't that great, but we can all break that down. That's reverse engineering, right? You can do that with any one of your goals as long as they are set up by the Goldilocks rule and through SMART principles. Reverse engineering. It's funny, talking about saving money, I I'm looking for a strategy myself on how to save money this upcoming year. So I Googled, strategies or game plans for saving money, and I got literally 6 or 7 game plans for saving money. And what I'll do is I'll post them to my Instagram and Facebook, and they range anywhere from saving $520 throughout 2020 all the way up to 20,000. So if one of your goals is geared towards financial, man, keep paying attention. Make sure you follow me on social media. I'm going to be putting up a whole bunch of different plans, again, that range from $520 to $20,000. That's the strategy that you have to stick to. A lot of times when I tell folks about strategy and how important that is in achieving our goals, I always tell them strategy is king. Again, you're going to have to put in effort. You're going to have to put in hard work. You're going to have to do all those things. You're going to have to be disciplined. But without the proper strategy, you are going to struggle. You are going to have a hard time in reaching your goals. Strategy is king. So we went through our homework last week, and I don't know if some of you struggled or had issues on where to start. There's tons of areas that you can focus on. I wouldn't go too broad, but if we're looking at development as a whole, holistic development, you want to try to hit on almost every single area. Some examples would be, personal. What are your personal goals? What do you want to chase anything down that ties to your passion? What are you passionate about? For me, it's development. So one of my goals going into the new year was starting this podcast, getting this thing off the ground and running. Professional. Is there anything you want to work towards job-wise, career-wise? What are some goals that you can establish going into that? Maybe relationships. Maybe you want to set a goal in relationships. Maybe you want to tell people more often how much you appreciate them. So maybe you set a goal of reaching out to one person every single day, whether or not it's through a text or an email or something. Maybe you want to set a goal that improves your relationships. Maybe it's finances, saving money, investing, health. Maybe it's health related. Maybe you want to get more fit or give up smoking or cut down on drinking or whatever it is. Maybe you want to plan to run a marathon, spiritual. Maybe you want to meditate more. Maybe you want to pray more. Like, these are all areas that you can establish clear goals for, right? And the list goes on and on. Again, if I missed anything or you want to share some ideas, please feel free to message me, reach out to me. I will add them in. I know, I told you before, if there's one thing I learned in my many, many years on this earth, is that I don't know anything, right? So if you want to reach out, let me know. Let me know where I'm missing the boat. So that's really it, right? Goal setting and strategy. Understand that when you're setting up your goals, follow the Goldilocks rule. Follow the SMART principles. And then strategy. Strategy is king. Reverse engineer it. Break it down to as small a tasks as you can possibly do. Whether or not that's daily, weekly, monthly, whatever it is, reverse engineer it and break it down. That will make it easier. That will provide those checkpoints that you're going to need in order to reach your ultimate 2020 and 5-year plan goal. So, now you know what time it is. It's homework time. So just like last week, two simple things I want you to work on that will not only help you with our next topic, but more importantly, help you be successful as we transition into 2020. So the first piece of homework, I need you to go back and review both your 5-year plan and your focus on 2020 and make sure that they align with the principles I've identified in goal setting and strategy. Make sure they follow the Goldilocks rule. Make sure that they are tied to those SMART principles. Make sure that you have a strategy for them. Make sure that you reverse engineer them so much that you know what you need to do on a day in and day out basis in order to be successful at them. And number two, once you reverse engineer and you break things down to daily or weekly tasks, I want you to start looking at your daily habits. What do you do on a reoccurring basis that is either pushing you towards your goals or moving you away from them? I want you to start identifying your daily habits. What do you need to change? What do you need to improve on? What do you need to start doing? What do you need to stop doing? What are your daily habits? Now, you're going to need this one for next week, because next week that is exactly the topic we are talking about. Habits. Now, I told you that strategy is king. If strategy is king, your habits are the queen. They go hand in hand. I can tie this to being married, right? My wife will tell you that I'm the king of the household, right? I wear the pants. I'm also smart enough to know that my wife is the queen and she picks them out. My wife will tell you that I'm the king. I'm the head of the household. I'm smart enough to know that my wife, she's the spine. She's the neck. She's what moves the head. So if strategy is king, your habits are queen. They go hand in hand. You will need both of these to be successful in reaching your 2020 and 5-year plan goals. What we are doing by identifying the strategy and then next week getting into habits is we're developing the roadmap to your success. We're strategically developing the plan to ensure that you are the most successful that you can possibly be. Now, if you step into 2020 with 2019 problems, you have nobody to blame but yourself. I know that's a hard pill to swallow for some, but you have to take some ownership and some accountability in this. We're developing the roadmap for you. You just have to follow it. You have to put in the work, write down your detailed notes, develop your strategy, tie in the habits, and follow through. So in wrapping up, you understand that the homework you have to do is, number one, go back and review both your 5-year and 2020 goals. And number two, take a look at your daily habits. What needs to change? What needs to be improved on? What are some of the areas that you know you can work on that will help you reach these goals? I want to again thank you so much for spending time with me today. I hope you have a wonderful and healthy new year. I hope your family is blessed throughout the new year. I look forward to talking with you next week. Again, couldn't be more excited. Might have a surprise in store for you next week. We'll see if we can get everything worked out. But until next time, continue working on the code to unlocking your truest potential. Be a catalyst of development, not only for yourself, but for all those around you. Have a happy, wonderful new year. We'll see you next time.